How are you guys? So this is pick a card. What can help me with my goals? So right away we're gonna get right into it. You're gonna pick one of two perfumes that I have right here. So for number one option, it is my Victoria's Secret Heavenly. And for option number two, it is my Daisy Love Marc Jacobs. Okay, so go ahead and pick your perfume. Okay, so for the number one, for you, those of you who chose number one, I'm going to share with you guys the what is the goal here, so that you guys can know if this is your reading or not, or if you are supposed to look into pile number two, and if I even have a message for you. Okay, so the goal here for this pile is to transform the way that you have been doing things into a more creative, more balanced, more grounded, more joyful and loving way, to transform it into doing things in the way that you used to do. And this may be a work situation or even business situation. Your goals may not even be related to money, and it might be related to just in general in life, and your goals are to be happier, to come from a more grounded and loving energy, more compassionate energy, to come from a space in which you are more aware of where everyone is coming from, and less in your ego and less in your pride. You're also wanting to be more aware of how you're coming off to others, and not in a way that it's like, oh, I want to fit in, I care too much about what people think, but more so transforming that thought process into, I am going to care of how I treat others, how my actions have consequences, and so on and so forth. If that is your goal, and if this is in fact, when it comes to work situation, if it is a work situation and it comes to business or work, and it's creating, instead of being in a place of, this is a goal about leaving a situation or changing the dynamic in which you have right now when it comes to work or business, and coming into a space where you're much more happy and joyful, but you're also able to create, you're able to bring from scratch things that you want to bring. Basically, if your goals have to do with work and it's a job situation, you want to be in a place, or you want to change where you're at work, and you want to be able to be in a place where they're going to listen to you. If you want to stay where you're at, this is somebody who wants to have a contribution to the group, the meetings, bosses, wants to be able to contribute with creative ideas, wants to be able to add to whatever it is that's being brought up, and wants to be respected, and for it to come from a place where you're happy and something that you're actually really good at, and that's why you want to be able to be heard. If this is a business situation, this is about maybe changing a course of your business, if it's an established business that you're trying to change, if that's your goal, or if this is about getting into business, a different business, and moving away from the one that you already have. This could be a revamp, this could be a change, but definitely has to do with an ending of something and a beginning of something new. Okay, this is for those of you whose goal is something completely new and different, or at least changed and alchemized and transformed from what it was or what it is. If your goal, again, it doesn't have to necessarily be career, and it doesn't necessarily have to be finances. This could also be work. This could also be a relationship. This could be a goal from a relationship standpoint, as in how you approach relationships, how you show up in relationships, what relationships you want. You want to leave behind the type of relationships you were in, and your goal is to come into a new place in your relationships. Or it could be that you are in a relationship and you want to change. Your goal is to change that relationship. So however the case, this is all about energy, and that is the goal for you for this pile. So if that is what you resonate with, then this is your pile. If that's not what you resonate with, then go ahead and check my other pile. And if you don't resonate with either of them, then that just means that I do not have a message for you right now. Okay? Okay, pile 1. Like I was saying, this is a transformational goal. Okay, your goal here is obviously to transform. Okay, because right here in the middle of everything is Pluto. Okay, Pluto is a house of transformation. Pluto rules Scorpio. Scorpio is ruled by Pluto. Okay, and we know that Scorpio is a sign of transformation, of death. Usually the archetypes is that of the story of either the person who's a gatekeeper of the underworld, or the person who brings down the dead into the underworld, or a person who goes through a transformation from having gone into the underworld and coming back out as their transformed self. But this also means that there is an energy there of that transformation can turn dark, in the sense of like you can get stuck. You could get stuck in that space if you don't allow yourself to allow Pluto to transform you, meaning if you don't allow the transformation to take its full course. And I say that because sometimes we are so dead set on a goal being a certain way that if it doesn't happen the exact way that we wanted to, or that we envisioned it in our minds, we give up, or we go back to what we were comfortable with, go back to where we started, go back to where we were already moving ahead from. For those of you who this is about finances, business, career, work situation, this is going to be the first part of this reading, and the second part will be for those of you who are for the relationship part, okay? Aspect, although all around it's often connected, okay? Anyways, so the first card that came out was Venus Beloved, okay? And the third card, again, this is all being surrounded by that Pluto energy, is the 5th house passion. So I really believe that you're wanting to transform whatever it is that you were more dead set on before into something that you are more passionate about, more connected to at a heart center. You're wanting to change from a materialistic point of view of wanting to be, let's say, rich. And it's not to say that you do not want to be wealthy, or that you don't have a goal of having a good set of incomes, okay? But it's more so you want to transform it coming from a place of pure materialistic want into a place of like actual endeavor of what the heart and the soul find true, and where you will be fulfilled not just in the material world, but also in the spiritual, mental, and emotional world. And you know that the only way would be if you pursue your heart's calling, if you pursue your soul's calling, right? So with that in mind, we did get the Ascendant card, okay, which is how you come off. So that is also a placing of like, you're wanting to understand what that even means, how you show up in other people's world, how you show up in the work life, how you show up in the business. How can you change your business, your work situation? For those of you that you are wanting to change into the work situation, as far as like your boss listening to you, I'm getting that some of you are going to need to walk away from this old work situation. There must sorry, there might be a new opportunity. Actually, that made me really think about how I was noticing this as I was shuffling for you guys. And this is a lapis lazuli, okay? And a lapis lazuli is all about, it's a blue stone and crystal. This is a raw version of it. And it's about clearing your throat, clearing, like, sort of speak, like a metaphor. Being able to speak your truth, being able to say what you mean and mean what you say, being able to speak up, especially when you feel like there's something else that you want to add to the conversation, but something is holding you back. Often it could be insecurity, often it could be like a lack of words, vocabulary words. So, not to say that you don't have the vocabulary words, but it could be that in the moment when you are nervous or you have anxiety, you might forget about it. You might forget what these are. And I think that's why I tend to pick up on the energy that I'm reading for, okay, for the people I'm reading for. So for those of you who are in a work situation where you want to be heard, you don't want to leave, or it's a place where you are comfortable in the sense of like you do get a good financial space and you cannot afford to leave, okay? For those of you who cannot afford to leave, but you want to be heard and you love what you do, you love your job, you love the people there, but you want to be able to contribute more, there is going to be a necessity for you to speak up, for you to say what you have to say, even if you are nervous about it, even if you are like me, like kind of like stumbling over my words. And I believe that's also why I'm like feeling this way right now, because sometimes like my readings be flowing and I'm like, you know, eloquent in my word and my speaking, and then there's times where it's like it's very jagged, and that tends to be because that's the energy that I'm picking up on. And I'm really feeling that you might feel that way during your, I don't know if it's doing a meeting with your boss or with work colleagues. Okay, especially if you work in a place where there's a team and you don't want to step over toes or whatever the case. It might be that you want to speak up and say something, and whatever it is that you want to say ends up being something that you think, well, you know, maybe I should just backtrack, right? And so you hear everybody else's input, you hear what everyone else is saying, and you're just like, you know what? I'm just going to let them do their thing, and I don't want to like make anybody feel uncomfortable. I feel grateful to be here, and I don't want to lose the opportunity to be here. So I'm scared of speaking up and saying this because there's an internal fear that you might not have that workspace if you do speak up. But I can assure you that there are ways that you can speak up without having to put your work at risk. Especially if you feel that you have a boss who is like caring, who is actually aware, who is a team player, who is a good leader, and they do listen to you, but you're just scared of what you're saying may be so controversial or so contradictory to what your boss is thinking or what your colleagues are thinking, that you think, oh, it might be too different, that I don't want to give this idea over to them, or I don't want to say this is what it needs to be said. For those of you, this is about needing to speak up because you are taking the workload more than other colleagues. Because you want to increase your payment for the work that you do. You're just needing to either decrease what the work you're doing, especially if in your application or whatever it is that they gave you for you agreeing as to what you were going to do, if what you're doing right now isn't what they told you were going to do, you are not legally bound to do that work. And they know this. Okay, and that's very important to understand and to be aware of. And if this is about somebody that you're scared to say something to, about either a colleague or someone in the work environment or something about the work environment that you cannot speak up about, if something is for you, if a place is for you, if you're having to walk on eggshells, and if you say anything contributes to you losing that job, then that place was not for you to begin with. But if that place is for you and that boss is a good boss and a good leader, they will take into account what you have to say, even if what you say is so different. Again, if what you're saying is something that a boss, a true leader, does not like or will not want to put into consideration, or they might think it's not going to work out for the project or the goals, then that might just mean that that person is going to need to that boss is just going to have to tell you, or that boss is going to accept. Some bosses are actually pretty, if they are a true leader, they will accept and review what you have to say, and they will just tell you straight out and straightforward, because that's what a good boss and a good leader does. It will tell you, they will sit down with you or let you know just straight up that it will not work for the project, and will give you the reasons as to why. Again, that's assuming it's a good leader, a good boss. Now again, if this is about a situation where you are walking on eggshells and you can't leave, but you are walking on eggshells, I do feel that the more that you speak up, the more that you do what's on your pay grade, the more it's going to be obvious as to what it is that you truly need from the people that are there. Remember, you are working for them and they need you. But again, don't kill yourself or worry yourself into the ground, because they could replace you, in the sense of, like, if something were to happen to you today, they could replace you in a matter of weeks or in a matter of days. So again, take that into account about what kind of energy, what kind of work, how much work you're putting into this job. Is it worth all the effort? Is it worth the worry? Are they paying you what you are worth? Have you had a conversation with your boss, especially if you've already been there 6 months? And if in those 6 months you haven't had a conversation about getting a, what's it called? Oh, salary increase. I forgot what that word was. Salary increase, a raise, sorry. Getting a raise, a salary increase, whatever the case, and you've been given more load though, and you've been giving more work, and you are more responsible doing things that are not on your pay grade, then you need to cut back and be aware. Talk to HR if you have to, or be straight up with your boss and say, this is my work and this is the work, because if somebody sees you, they'll take, some workplaces to take advantage of people, okay? And we have to be honest with ourselves, especially if it's a work situation where there's a lot of people, okay? There's a lot of people in the payroll. If a boss sees that you are willing to do work for less payment that they have to give you, if they had to give you a pay increase, if you went up to them and said, this is actually what I signed up for, what I applied for, what I am being paid for. These other responsibilities are not my responsibilities. And when you're ready to talk about giving me a raise and like giving me a change of of label, a name, changing who I am in the workplace, then we can have a conversation. If you have already done that or you haven't done that, regardless of the case, some places will take advantage of you because they'll see that you're willing to get paid less for more. And so if you are able to practice on your boundaries, then for those of you who want to stay in this position, the chances are that they would transform are more than likely greater than if you stay in a space and wish and hope without speaking up or saying anything that things will transform. Okay? If you are willing to not say a single thing about what you need, there's less chance that they'll give you what you need. But if you're willing to speak up, again, there's a tactful way and a graceful way that you could do it. The very first thing that you can try is to look at what it is that you need, write it down, have a solid argument for yourself, a solid debate, a solid reason as to why you're asking for a raise or why you're asking for a pay increase, and then be aware of what they might say to you as retribution, what they might say back to you. Especially if you're talking to a manager and not directly to the boss. If you can talk directly to the boss, to the person who you know is above the manager, then that will be best for you in the sense of like that person still is, that manager is still under that other person, the boss, okay? But if you have to talk to the manager, be aware what they might say back to you. Be aware of the tactics they might use. Look it up. Google, do your research. Just do your homework and be prepared. But whatever you do, don't stay stagnant. If you really want to reach your goals, do not stay stagnant. Okay? Don't stay stuck. Look at where you feel stuck. Look at where you feel like you can't say something. Look at the reasons why you feel you can't say something. If it's because of colleagues, those colleagues are not going to pay for you to get the things, pay off the bills, okay? Pay your rent, pay your house mortgage, whatever, pay your car note, get the money that you need in order to do what you need to do. Get you food, okay? Those colleagues, even if you feel they are your friends, at the end of the day, they are still your colleagues and they are still working for their payment as well. And it's your responsibility for you to be responsible for yourself, first and foremost, okay? Now, as far as the Sagittarius energy goes, this is an expanded energy, okay? Expand your knowledge. Now, when it comes down, let's go back to when it comes to those who are expanding, who are in this place when it comes to business, okay? For those of you in the business, area, well, maybe you are in your business era. Okay, let's say you have a business right now and that business is no longer bringing you passion or joy. You're having actually more moments where you are less willing to do what you want to do, and you want to bring in something and not necessarily change this completely, but maybe perhaps transform it. For those of you who want to change from one business into another business, it's going to have to be in a transitional way. It's going to have to be at a slow pace because you still want to have that business backing you up, especially if that business is the only thing bringing in income. If there is a possibility for you on the side to have another kind of income that can help you in this transition, I would recommend that as well. Now, if this in any way is about you changing the dynamic of what you're doing from something that brings you in income into something like, again, kind of like in the beginning that I was saying, into something that you actually love to do, then this is a good time. Gemini season is a good time for you, even from now into Sagittarius season, from Gemini season and in Sagittarius season. If you can't do it now in this season, then wait until Sagittarius season, okay? Because Sagittarius is a sign of expansion, is a sign of like heading into the goal, okay? It's a lucky sign. So if you are able to change this space from a materialistic point of perspective to a more loving perspective, if you are able to put and channel all of your energy and your passion to what it is that you know how to do, to what it is that you love to do and know how to do, then the chances that that will flourish are greater. Because you will already have, mind you, you will already have everything that you have learned from the first business that you have ventured into. Okay? And you might be a little bit scared and you might be holding back, which I think this is why the Hangman, I got in the Hangman here. And even the 9 of Cups reverse. It's upright right now, but I had gotten it reversed. I do feel that the reason why you sometimes hold back in changing your course in action when it comes to your business is because you are afraid that it might put you in a position of like poverty, or it might put you in a position where, you know, you're no longer in that space. But you can attain all the knowledge that you gained from this first business and invest it into the second business. You don't have to necessarily put this business to rest until you feel that you are established with the second business. It's going to be a transitional time, meaning you're going to have to wait to put this one to rest, perhaps until you are fully established with this one. And it's going to probably be very challenging. But if you are up for the challenge, especially if you've already had a business to begin with, to me, that gives me the indication of somebody who put in a lot of hard work and went and learned through failure. So learn through that failure, okay? There's a cat. I have a cat. I'm babysitting a cat and I have 2 cats of my own, but they're separated. The one I'm babysitting is in my room. Anyways, sidetracked it. Just got sidetracked it. Anyway, so I got totally distracted by that I totally lost my trace of thought. Because something when I'm channeling, it's like, I just like lose my train of thought. Anyway, so what I was saying is that it's going to probably take some time. But if you already put in effort and you already put in a lot of work, because somebody who has ever put in the energy to have a business, mind you, I'm assuming this was done ethically, have a business that is in some way or the other, what is that word? Oh my God, hold on. In any way successful. Sorry, I totally lost it. If you are had a successful, or you have a successful business in any way or in any shape or form, that means that you know what it takes to put in the work to make that happen, right? So in that same way, it's going to have to be for this one, but I can assure you it's not going to be as hard as starting from the very bottom, because you're going to have all the knowledge that you gained from the first business. Or if you've had several businesses, again, you don't have to completely shut this down. I'm getting the sense to tell you that you might want to put it on the back burner or up on a shelf, so to speak, and put it away and shelve it just in case for a rainy day, okay? Because when you transition into this new space of business, it's going to be a huge transition, especially if it has to do with creating abundance from a place of passion. You're going to have to really dedicate yourself to you and to your heart, and to not let anybody else divert you from that, because we will get a lot of people who will try to tell you how to do your job. Now, that's not to say you shouldn't get any advice, because that's what Sagittarius also speaks about and Gemini also speaks about. Gemini also speaks about not just about working and planting seeds. This also speaks about having communication with others and how we communicate with others, and how we work with others, which is probably why this is represented by the worker bees. Worker bees in a community work really, really well together. Obviously, they work for the honeybee. The queen is like the main thing, but they all work together to keep the community going and well, right? So if this is your energy, as far as if you continue to work well with others, and in any of these two situations, whether it's business, okay, or a work situation, regardless, if you are able to learn how to speak to others and work well with another person while still having your own boundaries, while still being set on your goal, then I can assure you that by Sagittarius season, things will start coming into place. Okay, for those of you this has to do with love, and let's go into the relationship aspect of things, because I really don't have a lot of time. For those of you that this has to do with love, this is about transforming the way that you approach your love life, the way that you approach relationships in general. It's going from focusing only and solely on the surface level to focusing on what makes you come alive. Okay, on relationships of like focusing on what it is that comes from within you, focusing on what it is, like if you are single and you want to come into relationships different, and you're tired of the same old shit, it's time for you to look at how you approach relationships from the very beginning, from the root, the very, very beginning, when you meet somebody or things start to transform from a place of friendship or a place of non-romance to a place of romance. Where does the shift happen? It's about looking. Pluto asks you to look at your neurosis, at your shadows, at your ego, at your jealousy, at all the aspects of yourself that come and are triggered when diving from one place of a relationship into another place of a relationship. Usually the transformation that happens from a platonic sense of the word to a romantic sense of the word. And this is about not forgetting that you are not just to focus only on the romantic sense of the word when it comes to relationship. That what will help you tremendously is to also look at the friendship, is to also separate yourself often from the person and what it is that you bring to them and what they bring to you, and really looking at that person for who they are. Not what you want them to be, but who you know, not that who do you think they are, but more so observing them, almost like a scientist in a sort of point of view. And I know it's probably going to be weird to say that, for me to say that, but sometimes you have to be logical in order to truly observe somebody. Because first we see what we are given, and then we start, the more we observe and the more we stop projecting our own energy and our own wants and our own desires and likes to this other person, then the more we're able to actually embrace and accept who they are, because we're able to separate who we are from who they are, what we want from them to what they actually are giving us. Because we can't, hey, the cat that's right here is asking for my attention. His name is Neptune, by the way. So I'll look into Neptune. That could help in some way. Okay, so anyways. So, in one form or the other, Neptune. Hold on, give me a second. Okay, so I can't remember what I was saying, but I know that what's coming to my mind now is to just kind of reiterate on that message about Pluto asking you to focus, well, to look at how, what is triggered in you, okay? When then you're, like, look back, kind of list in your mind, so to speak, what it is that you know, comes up for you. What is the trigger the most that sort of backs you away from proceeding in a relationship into a second or further development, or what it is that impedes you from connecting deeper with somebody, or what it triggers you, not necessarily having anything to do with that person, perhaps something that is triggered within you, that something that someone else does, even if it's not on purpose, even if it's not negative, they might trigger something sensitive within you, so to speak. Okay, so in that kind of mental knowing, understanding what that is for you and what does that mean for you and where does that come from. Okay, where does that come from, and getting to the root cause of that and looking at it and transforming it and working on those little tiny details, because that will help you in the long run. For a relationship to truly work out in the long run, I'm talking about 10 plus years. If you choose that, if that's something that is your goal, if your goal is to have, whether you are single or with somebody, if your goal is to be in a relationship that lasts you a long time, it's going to be a lot of forgiving, understanding, accepting, and getting to know one another. It's going to be a lot about knowing that having grace for another person who is also human as much as you are, and knowing that it's going to take a lot of grace between both of you in order for that to happen or not for that to work. And for there to be the love that you have, for there to be passion, for there to be love. If knowing also at the very beginning what it is that are your deal breakers, because you don't want to stay with somebody that in 10, 20 years, the reason why it even ended or it ends is because of the differences that are in your deal breakers, because your deal breaker was this one specific thing and that person could not meet that of you, and you could not have any happiness or like find any sort of fulfillment within yourself or in the relationship if the other person wasn't on the same page when it comes to this one particular, thing. Okay, whatever it is, whatever it might be. For some, it might be that you truly need somebody to work on themselves, to have their own lives, to be independent, but also like interdependent with you. Maybe for some of you, it's the opposite. You might need somebody who is willing to work with you only, who is willing to grow with you, but is committed to staying in the path together and doing things together, and, you know, having a close-knit connection where your lives intertwine, and where, you know, having separate lives isn't something that is feasible for either of you, but you want that to be something that is because you are someone that wants your whole world to be sort of like with your partner, kind of like, not necessarily that they are your whole world. I don't know, maybe that's your goal. To each their own, but, you know, having that sort of goal of like, I want to mesh and intertwine my, you know, my life with my partners, and as our life be literally like one life. And there's those of you who need that separation of lives, in the sense of, you have your own friends, I have my own friends, we have our own thing going, but we do come together and live a life together as one, but we also have our own independent lives. So if whatever your goal is to look at the very root cause of what it is that comes up for you in the very beginning, and understand what are your don'ts and your do's, what are your deal breakers, and knowing those, and also where you are not showing up as your 100% self, as being the version of you that you would want in another person. Because there's that saying or that quote that goes, if you were to meet yourself today as the full version, as the opposite sex version, or the person that you're attracted to, if you were to meet a version of yourself in another person, a version of you but in another person, would you be the person that you are seeking, or would you be the person that person that you needs? If the person that you envision is the perfect partner for you, if you are not the perfect partner for them, where is that coming from? How can you get to a place where you feel you're whole and complete, and in a space where you are that version of them, or you feel that you can grow to be a part of who you can be, in the best version of yourself, to be able to be, in whatever form, an acceptance of all kinds of relationships, especially those that you want for them to be romantic. If this is about a partnership that you're trying to transform, that your goal is for it to transform, is because you want it to be in a better place for yourself. This isn't about somebody who not talking to you or ghosted you, because the chances are that is to transform are less likely if the other person is not willing to do that. If you haven't had back to this speaking your truth, for some of you this might mean that you need to speak up and you need to say something to that person. You might need to reach out. If you haven't reached out, or if you have reached out and they haven't said anything, or haven't had any kind of sort of communication, if there hasn't been any sort of clarity, if there hasn't been a face-to-face, if there has not been any sort of movement in the communication, chances are that it will not change, at least not in this present moment. Now, if you wanted to transform, the only thing I can think of, because of this being underneath in the Pluto rebirth, let me see. Jupiter, abundance, also rules Sagittarius, perhaps waiting to Sagittarius season. There's also a harvest there. So October as well, waiting for October, Halloween season. This can also mean talking about bringing some sort of offer. An offer like an olive branch. An olive branch to this person. An olive branch of like, it doesn't have to be something like material. It might be a word, an apology. It might be something that you wrote out. It might be a letter. It might be a sincere apology in a letter. It might be, something that reminds you of them, that is closely connected to your friendship. Something that reminds you of them, but maybe not about you. if that makes sense. Not something that you think that they would like, but more so what you know they like. But it's more so not in a material sense of the way. I'm not speaking in terms of giving them something expensive or giving them something like that. I'm talking in terms of like, you know, I made this, I wrote this out, or I created this for you as a peace offering, or as an olive branch, as a show of my, you know, appreciation for you as a person, and me reaching out to apologize or to reach out to connect with you again. And perhaps this might be the start of us building like a, what's it called, a bridge to each other. Now, if I feel like this is very important for me to say, if the person is willing but is very reluctant and it's like kind of like slow, I really do think it's important for me to note that you cannot push people's boundaries, okay? You will only push them away if you want to force something from somebody. If somebody might be willing to let you back into their life, and do it so in their terms, in the sense of like slowly. They might not be ready for it, or if they are ready for it, they might want to do it in a slower way. They might want to do it in a different way than you anticipated or you wanted to. That's why it's important to be aware of your own needs, your own reality, who you are, what you bring as far as your energy goes, and who another person is, separating yourself from that and not wanting to project that onto another person, your wants and your desires onto another person. Okay, so if somebody rejects you, or someone says no, or someone outright doesn't say anything to you, let that be an answer. Okay, after you've made the effort for the olive branch. Now, this is about if this is somebody who I feel haven't had a conversation with. Maybe perhaps this is somebody from the past, or someone that you have a deep connection with, or haven't connected to in a long time. I'm not talking about somebody that was very abusive to you, physically, emotionally, psychologically. Okay, I'm not speaking in terms of somebody who might have almost murdered you, or hurt you tremendously, or betrayed you. Like, I'm talking about physically, like, because I do believe in grace, and I believe that some people do deserve grace, and I believe that some people do deserve second chances, or like that the relationship between two people after some time could be transformed, and there could be a new start to a new dynamic, because two people having been separated for a long time might have transformed to a very different versions of themselves, and coming back together might be different. Okay, so I'm not putting that off for those of you who you were thinking about, how can I get to the goal of having this person in my life again. Again, I gave you what I feel is a good, I don't know, like it's a good idea. But again, if this person is outrightly saying no to you, you have to respect their boundaries as well. If this person is like ghosting, as in that they're not even saying anything whatsoever, take that as an answer. If this person is blocking you, take that as an answer. So again, don't push your desires in your idea of what something and how something should go, how someone should respond onto the other person. See them and observe them for who they are. Okay? Anyways, so for those of you who this is about transforming a relationship altogether, it's going to be a lot about having conversations, sitting down and seeing your partner as your equal. And I know that might be hard, but I need you to understand that you're not perfect, just as you might feel like they're not perfect, especially if this is about a relationship or connection that you want for it to work. Okay, if your goal is for you to be married for a long time, or to be with somebody for a long time, then this might be something that you need to do. You might need to sit down. Some of you might need to go to therapy and actually have conversations with a third person in order to see whether this is something that's possible for both of you. And after going to therapy, if not, for having a loving and respectful, or at least amicable separation. And for others of you, this just might mean that you are meant to sit down and have a conversation with them, or make time out of make the effort out of your days, out of your weeks, to actually dedicate one day or a few hours, or whatever the case, to them and them alone, and be individual, like with individual attention to that person, like disconnecting from social media, disconnecting. For some of you, this might mean disconnecting from social media or deactivating from social media for the sake of your relationship, if it has come down to the social media being a huge reason why it hasn't been working out. It might be that those triggers are way too prominent right now, to where they're not like settled down or quiet, in other words, and it might be too obvious and too in the forefront that it might not allow you both to see things differently. So quieting off or deactivating social media for either one of you, especially if it's you who is watching this, and you might want to deactivate it, or you might not want to deactivate it, maybe because of your pride or your ego. Again, social media, if anything were to happen to Instagram, to Facebook, to Twitter, if anything were to happen to these, which I'm guessing is the social media we all connect through, if anything were to happen to that, guess what? The only people that you're left with communicating with are the people who actually communicate with you through text, or the people who actually care enough to reach out. And more than likely, it's your partner who's there with you, who is with you and like communicating with you all the time. That will more than likely be that person amongst the people that you have. Okay? So that is something to keep in mind. All right? Yeah, so as far as your goals overall, the energy here, the goal is to be aware of our energy, of how you come off, where your triggers are, regardless if this is business, career, relationships. And this could even go with friendship as well, okay? As it's the energy, apply it as a must. The point here is to be aware of how you come off, and not just in how you look like, because the ascendant, a lot of people think this is about how you come off as far as how you look, and this is part of the ascendant, but the other aspect of the ascendant, the deeper aspect, which is what Pluto asks us to see. Pluto asks us to see the deeper aspect of any of these placements, and Pluto asks us to see, like, being in the hangman position, going into a space of thought and reverence, and like looking within yourself, is to look at how you come off to people, but it's like how you affect another person, the consequences of your actions. That is what Pluto asks us when it comes to the ascendant, in the position of the ascendant. Okay, so how do you trigger another person? Like, we all have shadows, all right? We're deeper in that. And we have light, so we have shadow and light. But we have a deep aspect to ourselves beyond how we look. It's not just about looks. It's also about who we are. Because in the long run, which is what the ascendant teaches us, is that it doesn't matter how we look. It's what we do, and what our habits, the things that end up being what makes us towards others. As in, someone might look beautiful or handsome, but if their actions are shitty in the long run, or their actions are terrible, or their actions are careless, they might not be shitty, but they might be careless, and those careless actions pile up, in the long run, people around them will start to notice. Does that make sense? So at the end of the day, it doesn't really end up mattering how you look, more so how we show up with others. Okay? All right. So that was it for my beautiful number 1, for those of you who chose Heavenly. And this is a very, like, let me smell it. It's very, like, soft, a soft perfume. That may be a message for some of you. It's a very, like, I want to say like day perfume, but it could also be an evening perfume, like a nice night out into the town. I like mixing my perfumes. So yeah, I love you. Thank you guys for being here, and I'll see you guys next time. Hi, how are you guys? For those of you who chose number 2 for my Daisy Love Marc Jacobs perfume, this is your reading. So I already asked what it was that your goal is, and I'm going to tell you what the goal is, and you're going to have to discern whether this is your reading or not. If this doesn't sound like your goal, then this isn't your reading and might be for number 1. And if it's not number 1, it might just mean that I don't have a message for you, or you're meant to like figure the challenge out for yourself. Okay. Other than that, so let's get into what the goal is. I am using my Star Code Astro Oracle, which is all about literally like chart, everything that has to do with the birth chart, everything that has to do with the sky, and all the placements. So I asked what it was, and we got moon, we got solar flares, we got 7th house, 4th house, Mars, Saturn, Descendant, and Gemini. Now the way that it's placed is important because I can see a story lining up. And as far as your goal goes, I do feel that for many of you, it has to do with your home life. Okay, for many of you, this has to do with children. This has to do with your relationships. Like literally, if you're living with somebody, a living situation for some of you, like a marriage situation, or just in general, your family life, your home life. If you live with your children, or you live with your family, whatever the case, I do feel like home life is important. And I am also getting that if this is about business or work situation, whatever case, the energy here is about a transformation that has to do with how you show up, but also with what you allow yourself to receive. Okay, how you see yourself, the foundation that you are building in this new, for some of you, this is about a new start. This might mean that you already are in a different place. You might have just changed homes. You might have just like came out of a relationship, or just moved in with somebody. This is a shift from something old into something new. But this is also an indication that your goal might be to create a new life for yourself, or to make your home life easier for yourself. For others of you, is actually your goal might actually be to work towards building a financial structure in your life that you can buy a home, yourself and your husband, or yourself and your partner, or just yourself in general. Maybe you want to buy a home, or you want to get into a different place, move out and move into somewhere else, a relocation of some sort. I have the book out here because I wanted to read to you guys one of these cards. Although I understand what they all mean, the definitions for some of these are very profound, and I would feel would be a lot more meaningful if I spoke about them. And the one that I want to speak to you guys about is Saturn, because Saturn is a tough cookie. So Saturn is like the teacher, and I feel like for all of these cards that came out for you, Saturn and Mars are the ones that are the most prominent in my eye. Okay, even the artwork for them are like much brighter and different than the other ones. Let me show you the artwork for all the first ones that came through. First card that came through was Moon, Perception. Then we have Solar Flares, Activation. We have 7th House, Relationship. Then we have 4th house, home. Okay. Then we have Gemini, which is cross-pollinate. It was in reverse, but I'm going to take it upright because it is an oracle. And then we have Descendant, here at the very end. And this was like, I feel like the energy towards the end of like, sort of like an extra message, an extra push, an extra like informal kind of like a piece of information. So we're going to look into that. Let me see. Okay, so I wanted to read to you guys what Saturn structure is. Okay, let's see where Saturn is. I totally lost it. Okay, here it is. Saturn rules that which we must build over time. Bones, teeth, personal authority, maturity, borders, discipline, traditions, and organization. Saturn, like Jupiter, is a huge gas giant. With string of ice and rock, it represents the boundary of the visible solar system, as the last planet humans can see with the naked eye from Earth's surface. Saturn, traditional ruler of Capricorn and Aquarius, which is also important to note, takes 29.5 years to round the zodiac and form challenging aspects to itself approximately every 7 years. Hence, the 7-year itch in a marriage, and 21 as the traditional age of official adulthood. Action: Saturn asks you to step into the next level of maturity and personal authority. Think of Saturn as a martial arts master who pushes you to grow throughout workouts, discipline, and tests that allows you to prove what you know, both to yourself and others. Look for a mentor or choose to mentor another. Honor the teacher, but don't give your power away. Listen to the experts, mix their wisdom with your experience, and make your own wise decisions. If you feel like someone is abusing their authority or undermining yours, set firm boundaries and hold them accountable. Study, cope, and grow up. Look pragmatically to the skeleton and teeth, either of your own body or in the metaphorical structure of your project. Can this endeavor stand up and take a bite out of life? Make sure the foundations are strong, the organizational structures are in place, and build out from there. As you gain strength in mind, muscle, and bone, you can become stiff. So remember to stretch body and soul. That can even be metaphorically, and it can even be physically. So the challenge here is be careful not to cling to old conceptions of success or hold on to the brittle system that restricts potential and leaves people discouraged. And the gift here is the ancestors call you to wisdom and maturity, to know your gifts and limitations. This process may be an initiation, a test that empowers you. So I do feel that your goal may have something surrounding, something to do with the change in how you approach your relationships in general in life. Your relationship with everything. Not just even with people, but obviously very important there, but also with everything around you, your environment, the things that come up in life that are outside of your control and outside of the other people's control. For those of you who actually moved places and you're starting new, this is asking that you build a foundation first off of like, what is the basis, okay? You might have a goal in mind that might be a bit further away from where you can reach now. So what I'm getting is to perhaps cut the goal down into smaller goals. You have one big goal, and then you have maybe perhaps 4 goals, smaller goals, getting to that goal. And that might help you in the sense of feeling a sort of accomplishment that you might be wanting to get from reaching that goal, that bigger goal, to also giving your plans and your process and your journey time to germinate. Okay, your seeds, so to speak, to germinate. Okay, you can't force a plant to grow. You can't force yourself to step over these steps that you need to take to get to that bigger goal. And that's where I'm getting from this energy. Your goal here is there's a bigger goal that you have in mind, and it might be either you already changed places, you moved home, you're in a new home, you left a relationship, you're in a new relationship, and you just moved in with somebody. The point here is that you have a big goal, but you're trying to, a part of you is trying to skip. And I'm here to tell you perhaps this is how I can help you, is that you cannot skip smaller goals. You cannot skip smaller steps to get to that bigger goal. You're going to need to slow down and look at the bigger picture. Expand your point of view. Look at the bigger picture. Look at your bigger goals. Do you have a hurry because somebody is undermining your energy? Like, is somebody undermining either your authority, your power, or just undermining you in general? If there is somebody in your energy field, somebody around you that is pressuring you or shaming you for not attaining that goal now, and is trying to tell you how to get to that goal, but their idea is to step over the foundation that you will build to get to that goal, even if what they say to you works, but if that what they're giving you their advice is not coming from somewhere within an established and grounded version of you within your situation, then it's going to crumble, because the foundation won't be built on what is strong within you. It might be built on what is strong within that person, but it might not be built on what is strong within you. And you need to be aware of where you end and another person begins. Meaning, like, it might be the strength of another person if they're giving you advice, if they're telling you how it can be done, even if it is a boss, even if it is a partner in business partner, even if it is a friend that knows very well about something. If that foundation is not built based on your strengths, your personal strength, you and what it is that your goal is, then that foundation has a potential of cracking under the weight, because it won't be built on your strength, it'll be built on someone else's strength. And if that person were to pull out, let's say it's a partner in business, that person were to leave you in the ruins, that person does anything to pull out, to something goes up with their part of the project, they don't show up as much as that you thought they would, and it's built, the idea of that goal is built on their ideas of what was their strengths and what was easy for them, you might be in a space where things fall under your feet and you have nothing more to do but to start from scratch again and go back 10 spaces. So it's the same thing when it comes to a relationship, when it comes to a home situation, building a home, okay? Let's say you just moved into a home space. You want to build a sanctuary for yourself. A great goal or a great focus would be to find some sort of like, for you to have a sanctuary at home, but not for you to get away from the world, but for that sanctuary to prepare you for the world. A sanctuary is a place that strengthens you, that nurtures you, that helps you feel at peace and alive. And it's not a place where you go to escape the world, because if you use that place to escape the world, then the chances or the likelihood for that place to, if something were to happen to that place for you, then you won't have anywhere to escape to. Does that make sense? So it's about how you create a home within yourself, how you create a home within your own thought patterns, your own perceptions, what it is that you were taught at home, what it is that you were raised in, how you were raised, how were you raised, and looking at the core beliefs of yourself, looking at what impedes you, what are the roadblocks within your mindset and your perceptions that impedes you from stepping into another different role for yourself. That is very important in any case, whether it's business, work situation, relationship, home life, whatever, family life. No matter in what subject or situation that lands, it's always the same thing. It is important for us to be aware where our triggers are, our limitations are, our boundaries are. Because if we are aware of ourselves, if we get to know ourselves a little more, then we can be sure and we can be confident in our strengths, and we can be sure in our weaknesses, and not overextend ourselves to places or situations where we are not able to, and also not allow others to take from us or take from our power or overstep our boundaries or overstep who we are based on what we know about ourselves. If we know our strengths, we will be able to say firmly and with confidence, this is my strength. And that's something else that this is asking you to do as well in order to help you with your goals, is being able to really pinpoint and focus on your strengths, and then being able to be aware of your if you're able to be aware of your weaknesses, being able to focus on your weaknesses in the sense of knowing where you can strengthen a weakness and where you can accept that the weakness has to have a transformation, meaning that you're not going to be able to change it at this moment, in this point in time, and that you're in acceptance of that weakness, and that being something that you can share with your business partner, with your partner, with your your friendships, your relationships, and at home, and knowing what it is that you need help at. Let's say it's a home situation where you want to build something at home. If your goal is to make the money in order to get to a certain place to be able to build more for your home, to add more beauty to your home, the foundation here would be to make the investments and to make the foundation to invest into perhaps making a budget for yourself, okay? Like a budget of writing down exactly what it is that you need, where you're spending extra money, and where you can cut down on things to put that money away in order to find somebody who can help you. Let's say you're thinking, maybe I could cut corners and help myself by doing it myself, but you know it is a weakness of yours in the sense of like, you know that you're not going to do as good as the job if in comparison if you like hired somebody to do it for you. Okay, I'm speaking in terms of like, let's say it's landscaping. Obviously you can have somebody at a cheaper side of the spectrum, and it'd be cheaper, but the job won't be where you want it. It could end up costing you more because you paid less now to cut corners to get to it, as opposed to building the foundation first, and that foundation being putting money aside to pay more, but to pay for quality work that will last you longer and cost you less over time, because it will last you longer. And that because if you cut corners now and you pay for that now, as opposed to building the foundation and you just cut corners and just like get it done now because you want it done now and you pay cheaper, that might cost you in the long run, because 5 years from now or 2 years from now, the whatever it is that was built might fall apart, and you're going to have to pay to either fix it yourself or get someone else to fix it, and so on and so forth. So it might cost you a little more. It's the same kind of concept that might even be a metaphor for something else in that home. It might be renewing a kitchen area. It might be renewing a little area for yourself. Maybe building a little shed for yourself that's specific for you in your line of work, your business. And it might be that you wanted to cut corners and do it now, and it might cost you a lot later. There might be also people around you that might be telling you how to do it, that might be telling you, I can do it for you and it would just cost you this much. Be aware of where these people are coming from and where you're coming from, okay? It's like, people might have the best of intentions, but they might also be hungry, if that makes sense. Hold on. I need some water. This card really wanted to come out, so I want to see what it was. First house, arrival. So I feel like this is like the last of the energy here. And this might be like, sort of like letting you know to really assert yourself, who you are. Assert who you are. But because the Mars card is here and the Saturn card is here, this is a warning, almost like be aware of yourself. But in that same regard, show up as yourself. Show up fully as who you are. Show up as what you want. Do not be afraid to ask for what you want. Do not be afraid to go after what you want. Do not be afraid to assert what it is that you need and what you want. And do not be afraid to ask for help and to get the right mentors or to get the right people to help you. Now, it's not to say to give your power away, especially if there's people around you that are trying to convince you to do it a certain way. But this is to be aware, to be open to the idea that there are people who might be able to help you because they are experts in a certain field. But even if they are going to help you, to also be aware that that doesn't mean you need to change your mind or change your goals or change your style. It could just be that you take things into consideration and you might tweak things a little, but it doesn't mean that you tweak them altogether all the way. Does that make sense? It's like getting to know yourself so well that you know what will fit and what won't from what someone gives to you. Okay. As far as a relationship goes, this could be about starting in a relationship with somebody new, and there might be like an indication of there's somebody new in your life, there's somebody new that you have met. And if there's somebody new that you have just met, or like, I don't know if you're about to meet them or you have just met them, it might be that you're wanting to know how to approach a relationship in a new way, but you also want to be true to yourself and you don't want to repeat the mistakes from the past, which is why I think the Descendant card is here, because the Descendant card is a lot about how other people show up for us. The way that the Ascendant is how we show up for others. It's like the way that others show up for us. Where are we losing our power? Where are we giving our power away? Where do we end up being codependent on others? What is it that others can give to us, and like our boundaries, and being aware of our boundaries, being aware of how we grew up, how it affected us, our goals for the future, and where we're going, where we're heading, where our minds are now as opposed to where they were before, our energy, being aware of how we can transform any energy that we are not comfortable with within ourselves, and how that is possible. Let me see. There was something else that I needed to speak about. And within the relationship aspect of things, being aware that it's not just about you and the other person, it's also about the third part. The third part being the relationship itself. I'm going to share something private, but I think for the benefit of this reading, it's important. There was a relationship that I used to be in that we would call our love, or our so embarrassing. Talk about it out loud. It's not embarrassing in that it's embarrassing. It's more so embarrassing like that I'm sharing something private. Anyway, so we used to call the relationship our baby. Okay, our tree. Like, so it's like treating the connection in the relationship as like something third, not you and them versus each other. It's you and them versus the problem at times. It's you and them versus the situation. It's you and them and the situation sometimes. Sometimes it's better not to see any verses in it, not to see any sort of conjunction as far as like there is a like fighting within oneself, and being aware of the projected energy about another person and where your boundaries are, and where you have to be in assertion and assert yourself with the Mars energy and the Saturn energy, being assertive in speaking your truth and saying and knowing yourself well enough that you spending time with yourself enough for you to know yourself, that when you are in a situation within a relationship, that if you are to come into a new connection, you're aware of who you are, that if something else arises, you can also say, so this is me, this is a problem, and this is you. I don't know if this is you. I'm just showing you who I am, and this is a problem. This is what I'm talking about. And this person, either shows you that they are aware, shows you that they can be mature enough to talk to you about this situation and the problem itself, or they show you that they can talk to you about the situation or the problem, and then they project their energies or their insecurities or their own stuff onto you, and then you can be aware of that and choose whether that's something that you would like or not. So if you're coming into a new situation, a new relationship, and you're wanting to understand how you can approach this better, is to understand that this not always you and them, you versus them. Oftentimes, if not always, it's you and them versus the problem. Okay? Or you and them and in the relationship. The relationship needs nurturing. The relationships need watering. The relationships need caring for. And it takes two willing people, two willing individuals, if it is a relationship between two people, because there's polyamory nowadays, what I'm talking about. But it takes two people to go from understanding that they are two individual people and that there's a third entity. It takes two people to make the third in the foundation a place to be able to land on, a place to be able to rest, or a place to be able to be that will be a benefit in both lives. But it takes two individuals to nurture that plant. Nurture is like a tree, it's like a plant, it's like a baby. It's like you have to be able to have equal balance of give and take, an equal balance of caring, and equal balance of watering and nurturing that plant to grow, of nurturing and caring for and taking care of that baby. Or otherwise, if one ends up being the one that takes care of the baby more, one or the other will feel it, and that person might decide that they don't want to carry that anymore and walk away. Or it just crumbles because it dies away because it's not being nurtured or taken care of, and the two individuals are focusing so much on the differences between each other, or like butting heads so much that the third energy, which is the baby, the relationship itself, it's neglected, is abandoned, or it's hurt, or is in pain, or it just literally doesn't grow, and it stays disconnected from them. And then we have two individuals who are not unaware or not seeing how they are responsible together to nurture that seed, or that the baby, if that makes sense. So if this is about you coming into a whole new phase of your life and into new relationships, into a new era of your life, and your goal is to make better now than what it was before, and this includes your work situation, your work, your home, your for some of you this is your children, it's time for you to assert yourself and be aware, but also be aware of your shadows, and be aware where you can transform something, be aware where you fall short. Okay. Again, being aware of your weaknesses, being aware. Awareness important to speak, when it's important to hold back, when it's important also to take action. Okay. And this is what's coming up a lot is to create a sanctuary. What will help you is to create a sanctuary wherever it is that you are. Create a sanctuary for yourself. A sanctuary not just in the home, an actual physical place where you can go and rest. You can go and sit down. You can go and read. You can go and ride. You could go and watch TV somewhere, or even not watching TV, but somewhere where you can just go and be with your own self, your thoughts. Somewhere where you can just feel like, if it's a room, creating your room to be a sanctuary. This could also be about decluttering, which also Saturn, what other one? I think Moon. I'm not sure exactly, but there was another one that talks about creating a safer environment for yourself, creating a more not natural environment for yourself, a more inviting environment, an environment where you will be happy and fulfilled with, where you will love to come to, but also feel nurtured and feel alive in. Okay. This might also mean like literally decluttering your home, getting rid of all things that used to be. This is not just metaphorical, because you're going to be getting rid of old habits. You're going to be getting rid, that's something else. It's like looking at the habits that you have, getting rid of old habits, getting rid of old things that you used to, rely on, like addictions, leaving behind anything that has ever made you feel like you were stuck or even things that you are still holding on to that you might still have in possession that are from past situations, past relationships, especially if you left a relationship and your goal is to move forward or move on from that relationship, and that's what you're wanting your future to be. That big goal that I was speaking of, it might be that your future, it might be that you want a better relationship. You're working towards a better relationship. Your goal is a better relationship. Your goal is a more auspicious life in general, an abundant life, and letting go of the idea of what success was for you before, not just in relationship, but in business, in career, in home. Okay. And it might be that you might need to reevaluate how you perceive your home life, reevaluate how you perceive a space. How did you pick up the habits that you have now, as far as, let's say you have the habit of having a mess, and not being hard on yourself, and understanding that they come from like the basic spaces of your upbringing, and how you can change those little by little, that you can nurture yourself little by little. Like I said, if your big goal is to, let's say, not be messy anymore and have an organized home, help your children in school or their education in some way or the other, or if it's not children, just like, make a better living space, not just for yourself, maybe for pets, or maybe for you and a person, or maybe for you and a future person, or maybe for you and a future children, then understanding that you don't have to skip and get to that goal right away, that it can take little steps by steps. You don't have to cut it cold turkey, where you are like, now you are in a habit of like having a mess or being messy, just because maybe perhaps it's also mental health aspect of it. But being aware of how you can help your mental health in order to help the aspect of yourself that ends up being so messy and disorganized because of that mental health issue that you have. And like getting to the root cause of that mental health, and being aware that it comes down to the root aspect of, how you talk to yourself, how you feel about yourself, how you grew up, where you grew up, the environment that you grew up in, what you were seeing as you grew up, the way that your brain was, the chemistry in your brain was formed as a child, it's very important with how we are now as adults. And understanding that it's not gonna be overnight that you're gonna change, and being compassionate and loving and nurturing towards yourself, which is what this moon card talks about. And knowing that there's going to be a lot of triggers that come with the change and the transition from one place to the next, especially as you're taking those steps. But if you are aware of yourself enough to be in acceptance of your weaknesses and your strengths, that it's not something that will steer you off course. And if anything does steer you off course, knowing yourself well enough can bring you back into course, if you allow it to bring you back into course. Okay. I am getting the sense that for some of you, building a foundation, also a spiritual relationship between you and your soul. Some of you need to ground and meditate, get out in nature, put your feet on the ground, drink more water, small habits like drinking better for yourself. Small habits like starting to work out at least 10 minutes a day can help you with changing your habits for your mental health. Because if you can tackle and put your energy into helping your mental health, that could help you with your organization and to creating a better and more peaceful space in your home, or a sanctuary for yourself, even if that is just your room. Okay, or just one side of the room for if you live or sleep with somebody else, if that makes sense. Okay, I didn't even get to the tarot. I don't think it's necessary at this point. Thank you guys so much for those of you who chose number 2. And yeah, I think that's all I have for you guys. All my information, everything else is down below in the comments, and I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.